Hello, everyone, and happy Monday, and welcome to Firstpost America. I'm Eric Hammond. We're live in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., and over the next few minutes, we'll take you from the United States and around the world, covering all the top stories of the day. But before that, here's a look at the latest headlines. A Chinese Navy ship collides with one of Beijing's own Coast Guard vessels while chasing a Philippine patrol boat near the disputed Scarborough Shoal, Manila says, releasing dramatic video of the crash. Iran says it has seized a foreign flag tanker in Gulf waters and arrested its 17 crew members on charges of smuggling more than 2 million liters of fuel. Indian opposition leader Rahul Gandhi and several senior lawmakers are detained in New Delhi during protests accusing the Election Commission of colluding with the ruling party. The EC has rejected opposition's claims. Tesla opens its second showroom in India in New Delhi's AeroCity business district, part of an aggressive expansion that includes new charging stations across the country. Nepal waives climbing fees on nearly 100 remote Himalayan peaks for 2 years in a bid to draw more mountaineers to its less visited northwest region bordering China. We begin with the high-stakes Alaska summit between President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin. Set for Friday, the talks are meant to find a way to end the war in Ukraine. But questions are growing. Is it the Russian leader who's calling the shots and not the other way around? The White House confirms President Trump and Vladimir Putin will meet on August 15th in Alaska, a state once owned by Russia more than 150 years ago. The announcement came last Friday, the same day Trump's deadline for Russia to accept a ceasefire or face new sanctions came and went. But instead of sanctions, Putin got an invitation to a face-to-face. Vice President J.D. Vance defended the summit, saying President Zelensky could in fact join later, but for now, he believes a one-on-one between the leaders of the U.S. and Russia is far more productive.
I actually don't think it would be that productive. I think fundamentally the President of the United States has to be the one to kind of bring these two together. We're, of course, going to talk to the Ukrainians. I actually spoke with the Ukrainians this morning. Marco has been talking to them quite a bit. We're going to keep that dialogue open, but fundamentally, this is something where the President needs to force President Putin and President Zelensky really to sit down to figure out their differences.
President Trump has long promised to end the war quickly, even claiming it would have never started if he were president at the time of the invasion. But so far, he's failed to bring Russia and Ukraine any closer to peace. Moreover, the lead up to this summit has been messy. The White House initially floated a three-way meeting with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, but President Putin shot that down, saying the conditions aren't ready for such a meeting. Now, aides on both sides gave conflicting signals until Donald Trump finally said he's happy to meet Vladimir Putin alone, as the Russian leader requested. Meanwhile, Kyiv is not happy. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky warned that any deal struck without Kyiv's input would be a dead decision. He also slammed President Trump's suggestion that there could be a swapping of territories to reach a deal.
The answer to the Ukrainian territorial question already is in the Constitution of Ukraine. No one will deviate from this, and no one will be able to. Ukrainians will not gift their land to the occupier. Ukraine is ready for real decisions that can bring peace. Any decisions that are against us, any decisions that are without Ukraine, are at the same time decisions against peace. They will not achieve anything. These are stillborn decisions. They are unworkable decisions. And we all need real and genuine peace.
Reports say the plan on the table, allegedly floated by President Putin to U.S. envoy Steve Witkoff last week, would see Ukraine give up control of Donetsk and Luhansk. In return, Russia would pull back from parts of Kherson and Zaporizhia, and Crimea, which Russia annexed in 2014, would remain under Moscow's control. Now, President Zelensky says handing over land violates Ukraine's constitution and would leave the country, relying on Putin's word, something he calls untrustworthy. European leaders are trying to rally a counter-proposal, but many fear if President Trump and Vladimir Putin agree directly, Kyiv would be forced to accept fait accompli. But the Russian president, the bilateral summit is exactly the kind of great power deal-making he's always wanted in his first visit to the U.S. since 2007 outside of the UN. The White House says a trilateral is still possible, but the format and the deal look more like Vladimir Putin's terms than anyone else's. Come Friday, the U.S. president may be shaking hands with his archenemy, but if the reported terms on the table are any indication, the real power in the room could still be sitting in the Kremlin. And now to a chilling, undated video from Syria, which is circulating widely on social media. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights has released footage purportedly showing the execution of a hospital employee by alleged fighters loyal to Syrian President Ahmad al-Shaara's government. Surveillance video apparently from the main hospital in the southern Syrian city of Swida, and which some reports claim is dated July 16th, shows a large group of people in scrubs kneeling on the floor in front of armed men, most wearing military uniforms. The footage then captures a brief scuffle between the forces and a man identified by some reports as a volunteer with the hospital's medical team. The man appears to resist, grappling with one of the gunmen before being shot once with what is said to be an assault rifle, and then a second time by another assailant using what is reportedly a pistol. Now, activists say the armed men allegedly belong to the Syrian military and security forces. And the Syrian Network for Human Rights has urged authorities to take immediate action, calling on an existing United Nations body investigating rights abuses in Syria to look into violations committed by all parties. Meanwhile, rights activists have also renewed calls for an independent investigation into last month's violence in the Druze majority Swida province. On Sunday, the UN Security Council issued a statement expressing deep concerns with the violence in southern Syria and condemning attacks on civilians in Swida. It called for credible, swift, transparent, impartial, and comprehensive investigations into the violence in the country. Now, responding to the incident, Syria's Interior Ministry said in a statement posted on the state-run Sana'a news agency that it was investigating to ensure the perpetrators are identified and arrested as quickly as possible.
We condemn and denounce this act in the strongest terms, and we affirm that the perpetrators will be held accountable and brought before the judiciary to receive their just punishment, regardless of their affiliations.
Last month, the government set up a committee to investigate attacks on civilians during sectarian violence, and a report is expected within 3 months. Now, the Swida hospital incident has once again cast a spotlight on deepening tensions between Syria's Druze minority and the government. In fact, last month, violence flared with clashes between the Druze and Bedouin groups, sparking targeted sectarian attacks. And the fighting pulled in government forces and allegedly left some 1,000 people dead, many of them Druze civilians, according to a war monitor. Now, around the same time, Israel struck Syrian government positions in Damascus and Swida province, seeking to force a withdrawal from the southern region. Syrian authorities claim their forces stepped in to halt the clashes, but Druze factions and rights groups have reportedly accused them of siding with the Bedouin and committing abuses against the Druze. So as the investigation unfolds, the Swida hospital killing stands as a stark symbol of Syria's deepening sectarian divide and a reminder that the nation's long conflict continues to claim lives far from the front lines. It's said London is modern Babylon, a city of immense scale, rapid change, complexities, chaos. And chaotic it certainly was this weekend, with the trigger lying in the Middle East. Groups of hundreds turned out on the streets and outside the parliament, with some raising their voices in favor of Gazans, the others demanding the release of hostages and opposing the UK's decision to recognize a Palestinian state. At least 522 people were in fact arrested in a protest backing the Palestine Action Group. There's more on the scene.
London has hit turbulence, and the trigger is Palestine. Chaos erupted across the British capital as hundreds turned out on streets. Protesters from opposing sides kept their demands forward loud and clear. Some raised their voices in favor of Palestinians and against Israel's offensive in Gaza. The others called for the release of hostages and expressed anger over UK's decision of recognizing a Palestinian state. At least 522 people were arrested by the police in London as protests erupted against the UK's recent decision to ban the group Palestine Action. Hundreds of protesters filled the square outside the Houses of Parliament over the weekend. Many dared the police to arrest them by displaying signs reading, "I oppose genocide. I support Palestine Action."
I've come here to support the campaign to get Palestine Action deprescribed. It's outrageous that they have been judged to be a terrorist organisation when what they have been trying to do is to stop the production of arms, and I share their aims. So I came today. I haven't signed up for the protest, but I have a card in my bag and I have a marker, and at any point I might get the marker out and draw the same slogan. I haven't decided yet.
I was arrested for holding up a banner that these people are holding up, "I oppose genocide, I support Palestine Action." I have been charged under the Terrorism Act, Section 13.
Last month, the British Parliament passed a law banning the Palestine Action Group and making it a crime to publicly support it, with a punishment of up to 14 years in prison. This after activists broke into a Royal Air Force base and vandalized 2 tanker planes to protest against Britain's support for Israel's offensive against Hamas in the Gaza Strip. Supporters of the Palestine Action Group, who have held several protests over the past month, argue that the law illegally restricts freedom of expression. The group also said its activists were responding to the UK's indirect military support for Israel amid the war in Gaza. According to police figures, half of the people arrested in the weekend protests in relation to the Palestine Action were aged 60 or above. The UK government faced criticism for its actions from the United Nations and groups such as Amnesty International and Greenpeace. They condemned the government's prescription as legal overreach and a threat to free speech. In defense, the UK Home Secretary said the government's decision was taken in line with its national security police and kept public safety on priority. While there were protests supporting the Palestine Action Group, pro-Israel supporters also marched against the organization. They even opposed the UK government's decision to recognize a Palestinian state in September, unless Israel meets certain conditions, including agreeing to a ceasefire in Gaza and reviving the prospect of a 2-state solution.
You know, Palestine Action are a prescribed terrorist organisation again, and it shows that terrorism is becoming mainstream. We still believe that they are a small section of society, a radical section, who may dominate the airwaves, but the silent majority is with us, and they stand for peace, they stand for the rule of law, and they stand for democracy. And Israel is still all of those things.
Meanwhile, hundreds more marched to Prime Minister Keir Starmer's residence in Downing Street, calling for the release of Israeli hostages held by Hamas in Gaza. The protesters were joined by several relatives of the hostages, who waved Israeli flags and wore yellow ribbons, a symbol of solidarity with those held captive.
Shame on you! Shame on you! The world wants to forget the hostages. They've slipped from the headlines. The silence, deafening. They are not just hostage to the terrorist ghouls of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. They're also hostage to the world's indifference. Every moment they remain in chains is a choice by cowardly leaders to look away.
The UK has been witnessing a series of rallies denouncing the British government's stand on Israel's war in Gaza. While British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's move to recognize a Palestinian state later this year has angered Israel, many Palestinian supporters in the UK condemn the government for not doing enough to end the war in Gaza. For the UK, this geopolitical challenge has also brought in a domestic disorder. How will the Keir Starmer government wade through this? That remains to be seen.
And in corporate America, a tech feud between two of the biggest names in artificial intelligence is once again heating up. The rivalry between OpenAI CEO Sam Altman and tech billionaire Elon Musk entered a new phase last week. In an interview, Altman dismissed the former colleague's repeated criticisms of the ChatGPT creator and its newly launched GPT-5 model. Now, earlier this month, OpenAI launched its latest artificial intelligence model, claiming that it offers advancements in accuracy, speed, reasoning, and math capabilities.
With GPT-4, maybe it was like talking to a college student. Real intelligence, real utility. But with GPT-5, now it's like talking to an expert, a legitimate PhD-level expert in anything, any area you need, on demand, that can help you with whatever your goals are.
And soon after, Microsoft CEO announced full integration of GPT-5 into Microsoft 365 Copilot, GitHub Copilot, and Azure AI Foundry, a move that prompted an immediate response from Elon Musk. On his platform X, Musk warned that OpenAI would eat Microsoft alive. He followed with a post claiming his company XAI Grok 4 outperformed GPT-5 on a test known to check how close an AI is to human-like intelligence. Responding to Musk's criticism on CNBC, Sam Altman said he doesn't think about Musk that much.
You know, I don't think about him that much. I thought he was just like tweeting all day about how much OpenAI sucks and our model is bad and, you know, not going to be a good company and all that.
And Microsoft, too, sought to downplay the issue on social media.
People have been trying for 50 years, and that's the fun of it. Each day you learn something new and innovate, partner, and compete. Excited for Grok 4 on Azure and looking forward to Grok 5.
And now to put this in perspective, Altman and Musk have a history of trading barbs, a feud rooted in their split over OpenAI's original mission. The two co-founded the company in 2015 as a nonprofit AI research lab, but OpenAI later moved to turn it into a for-profit entity to capitalize on ChatGPT's explosive success, with Microsoft as its biggest backer. In February, Musk led a $97.4 billion bid to acquire the nonprofit that controls OpenAI. Altman, however, rejected the offer, quipping that he would rather buy Twitter, now X, for a fraction of the price. Months later, OpenAI dropped its push to become a for-profit organization entirely. The move has not slowed the ChatGPT maker's ambitions. OpenAI is now reportedly eyeing a $500 billion valuation, up from its current $300 billion. Those ambitions, however, become as its partnership with Microsoft reportedly faces strain amid disputes over control, equity, exclusivity, and the future of artificial intelligence itself. So as the war of words between Altman and Musk escalates, it underscores the growing clash for supremacy in artificial intelligence and who will shape its future. The hallowed halls of the White House have a story to tell, and right now they're whispering Donald Trump. For years, tradition has placed portraits of America's most recent presidents front and center for all to see. But in President Trump's White House, that's no longer the case. Barack Obama, George W. Bush, and George H.W. Bush's faces are gone from the grand entrance and tucked away where almost no one can see them. The U.S. president's decision is being seen as a move which is more than just a change of decor. Clearly, past presidents, especially Barack Obama, continue to live rent-free in Donald Trump's head. Take a look.
From that moment on, it has been nothing but swift and unrelenting action to usher in the greatest and most successful era in the history of our country.
Donald Trump is giving the White House a makeover. And in this process, some past presidents are losing prime spots. But it's Trump's after all. He doesn't mind changing rules, even if it's rewriting history on walls. Does he let tradition get in his way? No. Does he mind breaking precedent? Absolutely not. So what's in the latest episode? Trump is removing portraits of his predecessors, Barack Obama and both the Bush presidents, George Bush and his father George H.W. Bush. Multiple reports are saying this. Their pictures are being moved to a less visible place. First things first, let's declutter. Where are these portraits now? They have been shifted to the top of the Grand Staircase, a space connecting the state floors to the second floor of the White House. It's a restricted area, seen only by the First Family, the Secret Service, and select staff, and is off limits to public visitors. Obama's portrait, for instance, once greeted visitors right at the main entryway. Now it's tucked away out of sight. The same fate has met the portraits of the Bush father-son duo. It's not the first time Obama's portrait has been moved under Trump's watch. Back in April, it was relocated across the Grand Foyer. This was to make way for Trump's own portrait, the one showing him after surviving an assassination attempt in Pennsylvania. For decades, there's been an unspoken rule. Portraits of most recent presidents are supposed to hang at the entrance of the mansion, at a place which can be seen by guests, dignitaries, foreign leaders, and officials alike. But that has now been brushed aside. People who worked in the White House were cited in reports. They say the decision shows how Trump is personally involved in shaping its look. Let's not forget his Rose Garden redesign and the ambitious plan for a new ballroom that Trump intends to spend $200 million on. His decision stirred some reactions online. Many on X called him petty and insecure. Some backed him as well. One user went on to write, "Good, where they belong, down the pecking order in history." But this makeover may not just be about Trump's knack for redecoration. It's the latest in a series of feud he's had with Obama. Trump accused the former president of treason and, allegedly, tried to undermine his 2016 election campaign. It was dismissed by Obama's office as outrageous and a weak attempt at distraction. Last month, Trump also posted AI-generated video of Barack Obama's arrest. Hence, when Obama's picture was removed, many took it as a symbolic move, one that reflected the strained ties between the two. From prime placement to a hidden staircase, the portraits might be out of sight, but the rivalry between Trump and the former president is front and center.
That's our show for today. We certainly thank you for joining us on this Monday morning. We certainly look forward to having you right back here again tomorrow. Thanks everyone for tuning in.